Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to Minchiate Monday, episode 1. Today I am going to do a complete overview of the Minchiate deck, and I'm going to share with you 2 early Minchiate pattern decks in my tarot library. The Tarocchi Minchiate di Bomarzo was created in Bomarzo by Amparo, Aguirre. And this is a self-published deck. I believe the second edition is now in pre-order. This is a really beautiful deck, and there are some features of this deck that I find a little easier to work with, and I will explain that as we go through. And the other deck on the table, also early pattern, is the Tarot Minchiate Restauré, Restored, Tarot Minchiate by Emmanuelle, Iger, and Isabelle Nadolny. Both of these decks come with extremely detailed, well-researched guidebooks, both in terms of the game of Minchiate as well as in the history, different ideas about how to work and read with the deck. My intention for this series is to make Minchiate a working tarot deck in my practice. To do that, I will need to become very familiar with the cards, and I have been spending weeks and weeks going through decks, trying to familiarize myself with the characteristics of the cards, looking at different groupings and patterns. And I have to say, one of the most exciting things that I personally want to do is to incorporate some of the gameplay into the interpretations of readings. So, for example, what I mean is that the Magician is a very important card in the game of Minchiate. It scores in a variety of different ways. This set of cards that I have here is called the Popes, and there are 5 Popes. And this particular one has more points than the other 4. It scores in partnership with other cards and other patterns as well too. And so it's a very important card. Interesting that it is a number 1 card, that, and you can think about what that might mean to you, why the number 1 card is a very valuable card in the deck. These cards are referred to as the 5 Popes, and together in sequence they score points in the game. One thing that you should know is that not every card in the 97 card deck scores points. There are some cards that are more valuable than others. And I hope that I can do this series justice in both exploring possible interpretations of cards as well as incorporating some of the fun of gameplay, which may add importance or significance in a reading. Even though both of the decks I'm showing you today are early Minchiate pattern, the titles of the first 5 cards vary. And this is so common in the Minchiate Tarot. It's really important to remain open-minded and curious about the characters in the cards. And I think being curious too about where they rule, where they represent, might also provide some information about how we're going to interpret these cards in a reading. So as I may have said, these first 5 cards are called the 5 Popes, and they are the Battler, the Magician, the Empress, the Emperor, the Empress of the East, and Love. And those are the titles in this deck. And in the Bomarzo Minchiate, we also have the Battler, so the Magician, and then the Queen. So this one Amparo refers to as the queen rather than the empress, and the emperor. And this one is referred to as the popess rather than the empress of the east, and love. And following love, we have the cardinal virtues, temperance, strength or fortitude, and justice. And then a little further down in sequence, we have prudence, which doesn't appear until the 17th arcanum. The theological virtues are 16, 18, and 19, hope, faith, and charity. And I have to say that I really enjoyed reading Amparo's guidebook. I think in working with the virtue cards, all 7 of them, there may be, because I have been reading tarot for so long, a tendency to, at least for these 3 anyway, bring in layers of meaning from the Tarot de Marseille or other things I have learned about these particular cards. But what she brings into her descriptions of these cards is to remember that this is a range of a characteristic, and to be familiar with the opposing vice as well. And that could help to expand and bring greater interpretation when one of these cards shows up in combination with other cards. And again, temperance, strength, justice, prudence. And this is a virtue that we don't really talk much about these days. And I've been enjoying reading different articles on the interpretation of this particular card, and I think it's one that's going to take me some time to completely digest. And then we have hope, faith, and charity. And you can see that prudence is part of the sequence of hope, faith, and charity. It comes after hope. And in between the cardinal and theological virtues, we have the Wheel of Fortune, the Chariot of Victory. And you can see that the sex of the charioteer is different in these 2 decks. Time, the Hanged Man, Death, which is a valuable card in the game of Minchiate, the Devil. So interesting that Death and the Devil follow each other in the Minchiate Tarot. And this is, for me, in reading the tarot, I find so many potent correspondences between these 2 cards, and so I find it really interesting that they follow each other in the Minchiate. And then we have the House of the Devil. And following the House of the Devil comes the theological virtues. And then we have the 4 element cards: fire, water, air, such a beautiful card, and earth. And one of the fun things about the game of Minchiate is in collecting the 10s. 10 is the Chariot, 20 is fire, 30 is Cancer. And I think starting to put together some of these sequences and think about how to bring the game into the reading of the tarot is going to make this so much more interesting. The 40th arcanum is trumpets, the what would be the judgment card in the tarot. And here are the element cards in the Bomarzo deck: fire, water, air, and earth. And then we have the 12 zodiacal majors that are presented in a rather unusual order. However, I do think there must be a reason for this, and I have some thoughts, but they aren't quite solidified yet. So we begin with Libra, and then Virgo, and so my mind has been wandering around the zodiacal wheel, cardinal, fixed, mutable, elemental correspondences, planetary correspondences. And there's a lot to think about. Scorpio. And the two goats are next to each other. So we have Aries and then Capricorn, the sea goat, which is a valuable card in the game of Minchiate. Something to keep in mind. Why would Capricorn be special? Sagittarius. Not that you Capricorns out there aren't special. I think in working with these cards, it's going to be very important to be familiar with characteristics of each of the signs. Certainly helpful. And I think this card coming up with with a knight would be really interesting in a reading, because the knights in this deck are half man, half creature. Cancer, which I showed you, the 30th Arcanum. This painting to me is just incredibly beautiful. The detail. I don't know if she says in her guidebook what size canvas that these were painted on, or watercolor. They're watercolor paintings, so what size the paper was. Just lovely. Aquarius. And the cards with red background denote significance in the game, importance in the game. This is Leo. 33. 34 is Taurus. 35 is the twins, Gemini. And then I put the Fool, well, let's move the Fool. Let's put the Fool at the back. And here is the Star. And these cards are called the air cards: Star, Moon, Sun, World, and Trumpets. And they are not numbered, and they have red backgrounds. Very valuable cards in the game. And you will have seen similar cards if you have worked with old Italian tarots. And here we have the Sun, like in the Tarot de Marseille, depicting love. And then the World, which reflects the place that the deck was created. And then Trumpets. The detail, oh my goodness. And the Fool. There are 41 major arcana in the Minchiate deck. Another very interesting aspect of the game of Minchiate is that the cups and the coins are valued in a different order than the swords and the baton. So let me explain. And one of the things about this particular deck is that the colorations of the deck assist in understanding that. So in the coins and the cups, the ace is the most valuable card. The ace is higher than the 10. And you can see that the color fades as we move towards the 10. And this is the same in the coins suit. Now you aren't going to see that in most decks. You won't get a sense of a change of color. So this is something that you would have to learn, something that you have to memorize, is that the 10 of cups is less valuable, carries less energy than the ace of cups. So why pair the cups and the coins together? Well, they are the red suits, the hearts and the diamonds. These watercolors are just stunning. I love the details on the faces. I'll speak to the court cards in just a moment. Okay, so Ace of Coins is the highest value card, and that is going to be really fun in sort of shifting up readings, reading with the Minchiate tarot as opposed to reading with a straight up tarot. As far as the black suits go, the clubs and the spades, they go in a traditional order. So ace is the lowest card, and you can see the intensity of color, the saturation of color increasing, and 10 of batons is the highest baton. And same in the swords. You can see the light color on the ace of swords and the heavy saturation on the 10 of swords. So I really like that aspect of this deck. I think it's kind of helpful for that. And if you're working with most decks, you will just have to learn this. The animals, of course, are going to play into interpretation without a doubt. And I know some of the Minchiate decks have unique features, and that too might also add something in a reading. As for the court cards, there are 4 of them in each suit. The order should be familiar: page, knight, queen, king, and the knights are half man and half animal. And here's your coins: page, knight, queen, and king. Page of baton, knight, queen, and king. Page of swords, knight, queen, and king of swords. And here's your page: knight, queen, and king in the restored Minchiate. And so I will be going through the court cards in some detail. We will talk about gender and how we might apply that in reading the Minchiate, among other things. So I hope this overview inspires you to take out a Minchiate deck and have a closer look at it and start to consider some of the points that I've brought forward today. And I will see you soon in the next episode. Take good care. Namaste.